mean, what is the right way to open up a conversation?
Well, I've got a couple of openers that I've been like fidelized to throughout the last, let's say, couple of years. So the first one that I like it, and this is particularly important if you're doing that screening beforehand. So if you've really got a very targeted list, and it's something very simple, which is start with acknowledging that it's an interruption. So it'll be something like, you're not expecting my call. We've never spoken before. So I'll be like, hey, Colin, we've never spoken before. You're part of a list of B2B SaaS founders I would like to work with. Can you help me figure out if that's right? Right. And it's like simple, like, and it works because you're acknowledging the interruption so that the limbic brain, the chin brain relaxes for a second. Then you make them feel good because you tell them they're part of a list. And ideally, they are part of an actual list, right? Because you actually did a good targeted list. And then when you ask for help, you're triggering another part of the brain that says like, oh, you know what? This is a nice way to start a sales call, right? So that would be like, that's my go-to. That's the one that works like probably like 85 to 90% of the time.
I like that. I also love that you're starting with, you're going to hate this, but you just picked up a cold call. Like, how do you get more of an accusation audit than that? Be like, I'm sorry, but you just lost. It's the opposite of those pop-ups from the 90s that said, congratulations, you won.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, in this case, like, sometimes they're not going to get it right away. If you just start like, we've never spoken before, they might not understand it's a cold call right away. But more often than not, they will. But the important part is that you're not doing what everyone else is doing. So honestly, even if you started like, I saw someone on LinkedIn saying that one of their best performing colleagues would start every call with like, hey, what's up, Colin? And it just worked because it was so weird compared to everything else, right? And they were like, do I know this person? So it hacks that brain. So the first thing is got to be, you got to scramble their brain a little bit. But obviously, the more professional and targeted it sounds, the better it has to be.
So once you've interrupted their brain with like a pattern interrupt, what's your go-to for like getting to that magical question?
Well,
bridge the gap.
So usually, and this is probably again something that I've been told by Jack and Zach, which for me was the bridge that some people miss, is that at this point, more often than not, they'll be like, well, it depends what's regarding. And this is not yet the time where you can go into the pitch or into your problem statement, let's say. Just because they haven't actually given you permission, they say, well, it depends what's regarding. And this is, for me, it's quite easy because I've got a perfect line, which is like, fair enough, I did call you out of the blue. I'll tell you what, I'll briefly explain it. If it's not relevant, you'll never hear my Italian accent again. Is that fair? And then at this point, I'm also breaking a bit of humor in there. And it's, at this point, I got that. Like, it's very rare. And this, if you're in the US, for example, there's a very good chance you'll be calling outside of your state, right? And you could be like, oh, there will be a chance. You could be like, yeah, you're never going to hear my New York accent again. Or something like that, or my Southern accent, or something like that. So you can put it in there to just kind of make the call more human. Yeah, a little bit of self-deprecating, a little bit of like, you know, or if you're bored by the end or things like this, just to start setting the tone like, I've opened, I'm a human being. That's the second part that they should be feeling.
Gotcha. So you say, hey, give me a minute and you'll never hear if it's relevant, great. If not, you'll never hear my Italian voice again. And then you jump into what?
And I still wait for I'll just ask, is this fair? Right? Because at this point, what will happen is that they've agreed twice to the call, right? So, and this is probably important because a lot of people think like if the person is talking, they're not hanging up, they're listening. That's not true. If the person's brain is scrambling to figure out what's going on, they're not listening. So you might get through the pitch, but if they're not listening to you, what's the point? And it's about quality over quantity. And then look, when it comes to pitch, like I call it a pitch, but it's not really a pitch. It's more like a problem statement. So the stereotypical SDR, or founders actually even worse because founders love talking about their products. they'll go into like, oh, we've got the best UX, our CRM is blah, 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 whatever, which is a lot of smoke and no beef. Right? And this is instead what we want to focus on is what are the 1 to 3 problems that your company or yourself fix that could be relevant. So for example, for me, like, let's say calling you up and you're a founder, I'll be like, look, typically I'm working with founders that got a couple of problems with sales. The first one might be that they are setting up an outbound function, but they're not sure how to do it, and they're worried they might be taking for a run for their money. Right? So like something very specific, something visceral, they might be thinking themselves, using their word is the best, the words is the best. And then there'll be alternatively, they already have an outbound function. It's just not performing as well as it could be, and it's very expensive to maintain, which is putting them in a weird spot. Mm-hmm. So that's like, I usually go with 2 problems. Some situations you might go with a very big, hairy problem, right? Depending what you do. And then the final part would be like, look, you could tell me like, perhaps neither of these 2 resonate, and I'm barking up the wrong phone. I actually use the barking up the wrong phone because I'm underdog sales, so just make it fun. And they'll be like, and they usually laugh again. So again, I'm trying to get in more humorous as well at the main time. So like, and the idea is that they'll either contradict you, or they start to be like, well, no, actually, that's the opposite of my problem. And that's when you can kind of start to move like, should I disqualify? Right. And that's basically like how the first minute of the call usually goes.
Okay. And so you pick the problem, and it sounds like from your pre-research, you're calling a list, you may have a problem identified for a specific list. Like if you've identified they have an SDR team or not.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. So you pick the problem statement and then get them to, and so, yeah, once you pick your problem statement, they say yes or no. Where are you taking this call? So if they say, yes, that's me, where do you go?
Yes, that's me, frankly, doesn't happen very often. But for the simple fact that even if they do have that problem, they are, they might not be willing to admit it right away. Right? Usually the best response you get, I mean, it happens sometimes. I say that, and I booked a meeting last week in 3 minutes, right, initially, which I also wasn't happy about because I didn't qualify the problem well enough, right? But the guy was in a hurry, I was like, whatever. But then usually what you'll get is something like, well, every company's got those problems. And this is where you can kind of go with like, be like, well, look, if that were true, I'd be a millionaire and I wouldn't be calling you, you'd be calling me. And again, always humorous, always try to keep it quite light. And then you try to get them back to the problems. Like, but look, for the sake of the arguments, like, which one of the 2 would be the priority? And so again, like you're taking them back to that problem so that they can go deeper into the the thinking. And this is what we think about problems all day. So like if you take them down that path, there's a major chance you start actually building real rapport as well. So that could be some of the ideas.